Hi everybody! Today I'm going to be reading you a story called The Little Duck. And there's a series of books that was done by a photographer that I just love the pictures in these books, and they're just really sweet stories. These are books that my dad read to me when I was little, and I read them to my kids now. One morning in early spring, a little boy was fishing in the pond near his farm. Again and again he threw out his line and pulled it in. At last he caught a fish. The boy gathered his things to go home. Suddenly he saw something nestled in the tall grass at the pond's edge. It was an egg, a duck's egg. The little boy carried the egg home with him. He placed the egg in an incubator so it would keep warm. Every day the boy turned the egg over as gently as a mother duck. Finally, after 28 days of waiting and watching, the boy heard something peeping and pecking inside the egg. The shell cracked and broke open. Henry the little duck was hatched. Henry did not look at all as the boy thought he should. His feathers were wet and they stuck to his body. His feet were enormous. The little duck stood up on his big orange feet, tried to take a few small steps. Then he stretched his spindly wings and wiggled them as fast as he could. He began to get dry and fluffy. Getting hatched is hard work. Henry was tired. He put his head down beside his empty shell and went to sleep. When Henry woke up, his fluffy yellow down was completely dry. Now he looked like a duck. After a few days, the boy placed him in a wading pool. It was time for the little duck's first swim. Henry tried hard to paddle, but the more he paddled, the deeper he sank. Ducks cannot float without oil on their feathers. Baby ducks usually get this oil from their mother's feathers when she sits on the nest with them. But Henry's mother was an incubator. He would have to wait until his own oil glands began to work before he tried to swim again. The boy quickly scooped Henry up at the bottom of the pool and wrapped him in a towel. Henry was shivering and sputtering. The boy was afraid he would catch cold, so he set the hairdryer on warm and dried Henry's feathers in no time. When the little duck was dry again, he found a cozy resting place on the broad back of the family dog. Together they dozed in the sunshine. Through the summer, Henry kept growing. The boy fed him cracked corn and duck mash. The more Henry ate, the bigger he grew. One day, Henry was standing beside a puddle. His reflection showed stiff white feathers growing over his yellow down. Suddenly, Henry's voice began to do something new. While he was small, peep, peep was all he said. But now strange noises were coming out when he opened his beak. Peep, peep, wah, peep, ah. Henry was growing up. During the summer, Henry followed the boy all around the farm. Sometimes the boy was busy, and then Henry looked for other friends. One day he waddled down the hill and into the barnyard. He quacked at the hen, but the hen did not care about ducks. He quacked at the rabbit. The rabbit listened, but did not say anything. When Henry quacked at the goat leaned over and butted him. Finally, Henry went back home. Summer turned into autumn, and the boy had to go to school. Without anyone to play with, Henry had nothing to do all day long. He tried to swim in a blue plastic pool, but the pool had become too small for Henry. On weekends, the boy stayed home. Then Henry was happy. He had a playmate. And sometimes on warm winter days when the boy was away, his grandfather would rock Henry on the porch. But still, Henry seemed lonely. He needed a special friend. The little duck was almost grown up. One bright morning in early spring, Henry waddled off the porch. He was a handsome grown-up duck now, with a beautiful curled feather at the tip of his tail. Henry walked straight down the hill, past the barnyard, and across the meadow. Suddenly, Henry stopped. He opened his beak with a loud quack. Before him was a wide, deep pool of water, much wider and deeper than his blue plastic pool at home. Henry had found a pond. In the middle of the pond, spreading its wings, was the first duck Henry had ever seen. As fast as he could, Henry paddled out to meet the new duck. He looked almost exactly like Henry, but it did not have a special curl at the tip of his tail. The duck was a girl. She quacked at Henry. Henry had found a special friend at last. Soon Henry and his friends had an egg of their own, nestled in the tall grass beside the pond.